Get out your metal detectors, your fine-tooth combs, because we are trawling, we are browsing the waiver wire. Who's added, who's dropped, what are the moves that you can make to guarantee you victory? And, I don't know, other good stuff as well, I guess. Michael Bolton?
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I don't have enough points to match my academy bids. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets. To use across the app, head to fanduel.com to get started. Thank you also for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free, we're available on all platforms, and we are part of the #1 sports podcast network, the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for getting us to #1, and thank you for pushing me towards 100K. I want to get there, so if you haven't subbed, let's get that gone. All right, it's the waiver wire. We're talking about the waiver wire because, of course, we are. Let's get in and discuss it. So we'll start, as we like to do here, by looking at the most added players. Using Basketball Monster's advanced rostering metric, who's been added over the last 48 hours. Number one on that list is the replacement point guard in Memphis, and that is Vince Williams Jr. He's only started 2 games this season, both replacing Demetrius Morant. Of course, they had other point guard options in Scottie Pippen and other point guard options in Ty Jerome, but they have not played a game this season, so Williams is it. Well, they also had Javon Small, and he's injured too. Williams, in those 2 games, is averaging 13 points, 7 rebounds, 5.5 assists. That's pretty good, right? I'd be pretty happy with those sort of results, and I think you should be. He is struggling in some other areas, though. We'll give him that. And I talked about him at decent length yesterday on the recap show because it was important. We saw that game from him with Ja out, and Morant's going to be missing the next couple of weeks as well. The thing about what Williams is doing is that the passing has been an underrated skill, but now he's put in a position where the guys around him, Cedric Coward, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Jalen Wells, Jaren Jackson, Zach Edey, none of them can pass. None of them are passers. So even if he's not the best passer, he's going to have to be the one that's entrusted with that. Why I look at this as I do think it is a must-roster position right now is because those numbers are good in itself, right? But he's also just shooting horribly. 39% from the field overall. And I don't know that he's necessarily going to be a good shooter, but I think that goes up. I don't think it can go down. He's also getting no defensive stats. He's at 0.7 steals and 0.2 blocks. I'm not even suggesting that he's going to be an awesome defensive stat player, at all. He might not be, but it's hard for that to get worse. So when you've got a baseline of an increased minutes, good assist rate, good rebounds, he's hitting threes, and you've got room for a hot streak in either defensive stats or shooting, it makes it pretty interesting for me to be an ad for the short term. And sometimes the ads don't work out. We know this. But often making the move is not about that. You can't guarantee it. You've got no ability to guarantee whether somebody is going to be awesome. It's about, does it make sense to try it? And I think with Vince it does. The next most added player is Cam Johnson. Didn't realize he was dropped in that many spots, but he probably should have been. Now, again, he did, and I need to do this. Someone said you should create a graphic for when you talk about the thing. The thing is, when an opportunity arises, when a situation changes, and then you combine that with out-of-this-world shooting that makes it look like you're better than you are. And that's what happened with Johnson. The thing that was interesting about the game with Christian Brown out, is his minutes went up. And that is a possibility moving forward. But he also shot, I think, 60% from 3 in that game, which has got nothing to do with Christian Brown being out. His usage didn't improve at all. He was at 14% usage. He just hit shots. So I get it, but I'm also not convinced that it's going to be there. But you can make the moves, all good. With Vince Williams, we talked about the opportunity. And the same goes with Luke Kornet. I don't think we've seen a worse game from anybody than what we saw from Luke Kornet yesterday. It was terrible. And we'll talk a little bit more about Kornet in a sec. But it was, I believe, 100% the correct decision to add him, and I would not drop him anywhere. I would not. Because, like we always say, that game is done, right? That game is over. If you hold on to Luke Kornet, or you drop Luke Kornet, it doesn't erase the fact that that game happened. And you have to look at it and go, okay, is it real that he would take one shot in a game in 25 minutes? How likely is that the repeatable situation? You go, it's not. It's just not going to be the case. All you have to do is go back literally one game before and see what he did starting for Wemby and go, oh, that's pretty good. That's solid. Right? So having a visceral reaction to a terrible game, and it was, doesn't change anything about what happened in the past and doesn't change anything about what happens in the future. So he was the third most added player. He should have been, and he should be held on to. The next most added player is Isaiah Jackson. And again, I don't trust Indiana. This is our third go around of Isaiah Jackson being a starter. I don't know whether he holds in this role. Got absolutely no idea. But last game, well, minutes up, a double-double, and defensive stats. Sure, we go and add and we try, but we have no confidence in it whatsoever. And I'd be very happy to move off it if it doesn't work out. And then the next most added player, of course, is the pencil, Harrison Barnes. Barnesy! Is it chasing? A little. I don't mind the add of Barnes just to see, but like we've said on 2 days in a row, he's hitting almost 60% from three. It's just no way. Like, it's just not going to hold. It does not matter that Castle is out. It does not matter that Wemby is out. They don't make you shoot 60% from three. Now, his usage is up a little bit. That's useful, but he's still not going to be a rebounds, assists, steals, or blocks guy. He's still not going to get to the free throw line. Like, his usage is up and the shots are going in. And the problem now for the Spurs is they've got quite a poor schedule, and I just wouldn't prioritize Barnes. Although if you did it and you added him yesterday, it worked out really well, and that's totally cool. But I'm not all that confident in him as we move forward, as I'm sure you're well aware. What about on Yahoo? Who are the next most 5 added players over there? Andre Drummond, I don't need to tell you about that one. That's just an obvious must-roster player. We'll assess it if Joel Embiid does return on Thursday, but that's cool. Bilal Coulibaly. Okay. I still don't really know where I'm at with Bilal. Adding him is totally okay. I think you're going to have bad issues with percentages and low usage and low scoring. You'll have good defensive stats. I think he's probably going to end up in the 110 to 140, 150 range, maybe down to 170, which makes him like, sort of fine. Okay, whatever. Bad moments, good moments. He's not a priority to me, but I understand it. Pelle Larsson is the third most added player. Okay. Larsson's been good in his role. Absolutely. It has no chance of holding when Bam and Hero are back. But even so, like, I get it that you're adding him for a game that Miami has. But is he that level of priority? That one just stands out to me as like, well, why? Why is that like happening? Like, I look at, like, Bam is still questionable for this game on Wednesday. I don't really understand that one. Okay. Keegan Murray. I didn't realize he'd been dropped in as many spots. I'm viewing Keegan very similar to Bilal, but with less defensive stats, which is not a good thing. I know that it's totally okay to roster him, but I think in the end he just won't be a must-hold player. And then his teammate Dennis Schroeder, the next most added player, that is chasing some really good games off the bench. And they were pretty good. But the overall value of his game is just not that high. You're adding another 30-plus minute player into the rotation in Murray. I wouldn't have prioritized Schroeder, except they have a back-to-back. And that makes sense. So outside of the back-to-back part of it, it doesn't make sense, but adding because of the back-to-back does make sense. And that's where we have to be very cautious about how we talk about things or prioritize things or make our decisions in fantasy as well. We'll come back and talk about guys who have been dropped and whether people jump the gun on some of those. Today's episode, though, it is brought to you by Quo. This is something that every business owner knows. You know it too well. Missed calls can cost you. A customer tries to reach you and they can't get through. Well, that's just money that's slipping away. Quo, which is spelled Quo, is the smarter way to run your business communication so you never miss that opportunity. Quo is the #1 business phone system built for 2025, not 1995. Yeah, it's simple, modern, and designed to help you communicate faster, look more professional, and stay connected while you're working. The whole team could also share one number and collaborate on calls and texts like in your shared inbox, which means customers get help faster. It's got a built-in AI, which is a game changer to log your calls, write summaries, and even set up follow-ups automatically. And Quo's AI agent jumps in If you don't answer the phone, can qualify leads, route calls, and make sure that no customer is ever left hanging even after hours. So try Quo for free at quo.com/lockedonnba. That is quo.com/lockedonnba, and you can even keep your existing number. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. Today's episode is also brought to you by Rugiet. Don't make excuses because they don't solve anything. We know it. It's stress. Oh, I'm tired. Just happens to everyone sometimes. But like when it comes down to performance, your body just needs that little bit of extra support sometimes. And that's where Rugiet comes in. Rugiet.com offers fast-acting doctor-prescribed treatments for ED designed to help you stop making excuses and start making moves. Rugiet makes it easy to get started. You just connect with a board-certified doctor 100% online. There's no awkward waiting rooms. There's no in-person appointments. And if prescribed, your treatment gets shipped directly to your door in a discreet package. It's fast, it's simple, and it's private. So go to Rugiet, rugiet.com/lockedonnba to get 15% off your first order. That is rugiet.com/lockedonnba. And don't forget to use the code LOCKEDONNBA so that they know that we sent you. Rugiet, stop making excuses and start making moves. We're talking waiver wire here, getting into the discussion about the guys who are getting dropped across fantasy leagues. So let's take a look. Who have been the most jettisoned? Who have been the most jacked off players over the last 48 hours? Let's take a squiz at that. The most dropped player is the depressed penis Saddiq Bey. Injured and the return of Zion Williamson coming. Makes sense. The next most dropped player is Tim Hardaway because he was great in the first game without Brown and Johnson, and then he didn't play 20 minutes in the next one. He was never a priority add to me. He's a three-point specialist who is wildly inconsistent, and that illustration was hammered home in that second game. So yes, easy drop. In fact, maybe we should blanket jack these guys. I know you all love a blanket jack.
Get that garbage out of here.
Okay. Najee Marshall, the same thing. He was great with PJ Washington out, and PJ Washington returned, and he did nothing. So you don't roster him. I think that's pretty simple. Timothy John McConnell. I am getting skeptical that he's going to be able to do enough. He had opportunities, but then he got hurt, obviously, and he returned at the same time that Ben Mathurin did and after Andrew Nembhard. And given his hamstring injury and the state of this team and his age, I don't think they're going to push him into a big role. So if you want to drop him, I think it makes a lot of sense. And the last one is Trey Jones, who not only is also injured, but Kobe White is back. And I just don't think that Trey Jones' skill set is good enough to maintain this. And also, you play the 240 game, impossible. I don't know how he plays enough. White, Giddey, Okoro, Herter, Dosunmu, Jones. How? How does he play even 25 minutes? I don't get it. So I think it's a pretty easy drop in my mind of Trey Jones. Let's go to Yahoo's most dropped players. And there are a couple of eye-openers here on this one. The most dropped player is Luke Kornet. And I wanted to highlight that, even though I've already talked about Luke Kornet. But that is just absolutely reactive stuff. To be the most dropped player, nothing changes. Like Wembanyama's not back. Kornet is still the starter, as far as I know, and he still played 25 minutes. Is he going to come out and have 12 and 10 with 2 blocks in the next game, and then he's the most added player again? I think that is incredibly reactive. This was not a single game stream. That's not what it was. It was, here is a replacement for Victor Wembanyama for the foreseeable future. Not really, but 2 weeks or so. It's not a huge amount of time, but it's something. To burn an ad, to get one shot out of it, and then drop him is horrid asset management. Horrid. I will give a benefit of the doubt, right? Not to reactive raging, but the fact that their schedule's not all that strong. They do play Thursday and then on Sunday, which is two games in the next 5 days. That's not ideal. And then Monday, Tuesday off after that. Again, not ideal. But I don't really think that should matter that much. I'm definitely not dropping him, and I think it's just a poor use of process. Ace Bailey's been dropped. Now, this one I'm totally okay with. Me, if I had added him, and I don't believe I had, but if I had added him, my general rule on rookies like this is, let me just see what happens up until Thanksgiving. So I've got about a week to go here. But I get it, like his skill set, especially for category leagues, does not suggest that you should be holding. I'm going to need 32 minutes, 24 usage, 46% shooting to get me to the spot that I want to get to with Ace. And honestly, the chances of that happening, almost infinitesimally low. Maybe we get it going in February. But I think I would have waited, but this is not a reactive drop. Makes sense. Marcus Smart, yeah, that's incredibly easy. And so is dropping the Mpitsu, Rui Hachimura. At this point, it does feel like I'm bullying, but I just don't understand why this guy is rostered in as many leagues as he is every single season. I'll tell you what, it's not. It's not because there's such a giant population of Japanese people playing fantasy basketball, because there's not. So I don't understand why Rui pulls the wool over everybody's eyes every year. I'm glad that he's dropped now because it doesn't make sense to have held him. But man, every year we have this Mpitsu discussion. Paul Reed, easy drop. He was very good. Players are back. He's not very good anymore. Don't need to worry about that one too much. Don't need to overthink it really at all. Let's talk about quickly must roster. Now, what this is me looking at players on Yahoo who sit at under 50% rostered because, again, we're trying to figure out the Yahoo roster percentage numbers. And yeah, Walker Kessler's still rostered in an insane amount of leagues, but I looked and Jusuf Nurkic is up to over 40% rostered, meaning that at least 40% of people paying attention. So I used 50% as a cutoff just to say, like, these guys just shouldn't sit on waiver wires. So we're just going to go through that list quickly. It does include Jusuf Nurkic. He is a must roster player. At some point, they might move away from him, but they also might not. Zach Edey is a must roster player. Again, these guys are all sitting under 50%. Grayson Allen, what are you doing? Add Grayson Allen. Neemias Queta, feel pretty confident that he is established as a 25-minute plus starter in Boston. He's not getting Jordan Walsh or Hugo Gonzalez or Josh Meinhardt or Sam Hauser. He's just getting the minutes. Must roster player. And the last one, again, which is incredibly confusing to me, because I thought we all loved Big Colk. I thought that we were big Colk heads over here. Why is Ryan Colkbrenner just sitting on waiver wires? I don't understand it. That is just obvious, surely. Surely that's just obvious. I guess not. But what you'll also notice there is that even though Yahoo default leagues, which, again, my disdain for some of these big sites and the way that they run fantasy is frustrating because they contribute to the frustration of fantasy just in an incredible amount. The way they handle default settings with IL leagues or just not even having IL plus as default. The way that the Yahoo setting is to have 2 centers. The way that ESPN is to put a 4-center limit. It makes the experience worse when it's just a simple switch to make it better. But even on Yahoo, where you're defaulted into having to start 2 centers, which again is insane, why is there so many centers on the waiver wire that all should be rostered? Who are you rostering that is better than these guys? Nurkic, Edey, Queta, Kalkbrenner. Very obvious ads to me. Very, very obvious. Maybe not that obvious. Maybe the obvious is the friends we made along the way. What about droppable guys? Should I explain it? Because I'm sure we've got a new user, new listener, a new viewer here. Welcome for the first time. Sorry for all of the jokes about jacking. If you've got these guys on a standard roster, a 150-man roster, and you're looking at your team and you go, I want to do something stream-wise, and this guy's here, like, just move on from him. That's what it is. You don't have to do it immediately. There's never a point to just dropping somebody, unless it's Walker Kessler and he's injured. You don't have to just drop somebody. You drop it for a purpose, to get somebody else in. But all of these guys here, even if you lose a little bit in the short term, I just don't think they have to be held on to. They can be, but they don't have to be. And that one is Anfernee Simons. To me, this is relatively obvious. I saw a comment about Anfernee Simons on Reddit the other day, and this guy was complaining about the state of NBA media and NBA fantasy media, how no one ever discussed about the Celtics and how they didn't want Simons there, and yeah, he could be traded to a worse situation. He wasn't going to play. He was just there financially, and they're going to move off him, all that stuff, and no one mentioned it. Like, bro, that's what we talked about all the time on the show. That they had no introductory press conference for him, that he's not a priority for them. He could get traded at any point, and he's not in the same spot he was in Portland, and he should not be valued to pick 80 like he was in drafts. I was too high on him, and I had him at like 120. So take a flyer on him in round 11 is my suggestion on Simons. And he's worse than that. But he's still rostered, like, even using Basketball Monsters' advanced numbers, he's still rostered in 85%. Like, what are you doing? This is not Rui Hachimura we're talking about here. Like, what are we doing? Get rid of him. He does not need to be rostered. I put Tristan da Silva on this list. Now, Tristan da Silva is doing okay replacing Paolo Banchero. Paolo Banchero is not out for months. De Silva's not blowing us away with top 100 numbers. So again, if you look at that and go, do I need to go and add? Let's go back to the must roster list and go, hey, Zach Edey's on my waiver wire. Well, but De Silva, no. He's a droppable player. That is what we mean by droppable. If something comes up where you go, this might be better, just get rid of him. What he's doing now is not going to hurt you enough if you move on. Dennis Schroeder, I talked about him before. I just don't think that you need to roster him. I mean, you absolutely can, but I think it's silly, but you can. Colin Sexton. I go back and forth on this guy all the time, but they are deprioritizing, I think. And there'll be moments where he is solid enough, but is that worth a clog? Probably not. And the last one is Max Christie, who had a little run of being solid, a little run of being okay, and that could continue. But if Anthony Davis comes back, there's almost no shot of it. And even at the moment, his numbers aren't good enough to, if we had the option, we have our own personal can't cut lists, right? Now, can't cut list as a general rule set by a league is insane, and your league should not have that. Your league shouldn't have can't cut list, but you should consider your roster and go, who is a can't cut for me? Who's got a padlock next to them? So I wouldn't drop them. And Christie's not that player. If things happen and you want to make moves to get off him, it's not going to hurt, I don't think, if you moved on from Max Christie. We'll come back and talk about some hot players and some other names that are worth discussing in a sec. Today's episode, though, it is brought to you by Skims. Skims Men's is a thing. And that is great because it is holiday time. So you might want to buy yourself and your little mate a treat. You want comfort. You want good undies. You don't want things that ride and bunch. You don't want that. You want Skims. And you are sick of the way that the matriarchy has held us down from comfortable undies for all of this time. And it's time that men fight back. And we fight back in our underwear. Skims. Multiple different styles. Cotton 5 inches. Stretch 5 inches. Cotton 3 inches. Stretch 3-inch boxer briefs. Look at all the different options that are available. And now you get to bask in the glory. The way that our ancestors did. Striking poses in these modern loincloths that is known as Skims Men's. So you can shop Skims Men's now at skims.com. And when you place your order, you choose podcast in the post-purchase survey and select our show from the drop-down to let them know that we sent you. If there's a comment section, you can even write, thanks for the modern loincloth, if you choose to. There's also the Skims Holiday Shop, which is open. So if you're looking for the perfect gift this season, Skims has you covered. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The NBA is back, and this is the perfect time to be getting in on the action with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of a game and you want to come in and you want to ride the hot hand, well, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when it's your team that's coming back and making that late charge. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So go to FanDuel.com to sign up and to play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA, and don't forget to gamble responsibly. We're talking about the fantasy basketball waiver wire. And what we're going to talk about now are some players who over the last week have just poked their head inside the top 100, and we'll talk about the reality of those numbers and whether it makes sense for it to continue moving forward. Lonzo Ball is the 61st ranked player per game over the last week. Is he doing it via scoring? No. But he gets assists, some rebounds, some steals, occasional block, hits some threes. It does help that Jalen Tyson and Darius Garland are out, and I don't know when they're coming back. That's not a long-term ad. It's probably not even a short-term ad, to be honest. But Ball, on days that make sense, is a streamable option. You'll notice there's a lot of guards here. Jordan Goodwin is the 84th ranked player, and Goodwin is a very strong rebounding guard who gets defensive stats and gets assists, and at the moment, with Grayson Allen out and Jalen Green out, Goodwin is doing quite well. I would prefer Colin Gillespie over him at this stage, but Goodwin at least moves into the, hey, let's stream him when there is a Schedule Plus scenario. And I haven't really explained Schedule Plus much this season. It just means that that team has an advantageous schedule position to the rest of the league. They might have 4 games in 6 nights, when you could find other teams that have 2 games in 6 nights. That's Schedule Plus. You've got the advantage. 3 games in 4 nights. That's an advantage Schedule Plus spot. and Goodwin can be considered there. Craig Porter Jr. is the 85th ranked player. Exactly the same thing that I said for Lonzo Ball. He's a little bit tougher. He probably needs Lonzo to sit on a back-to-back to really push up, and he takes advantage of it. But he is a player that when you see 3 guys down, so at the moment we've got 2 with Garland and Tyson, but if it's Lonzo the third or it's Donovan Mitchell being out, Porter will be scrambled. And the next one there, the 95th ranked player, is Landry Shamet. Now, Shamet is a points and threes guy. That's what he does. He occasionally adds assists, but that's not reliable. But what we've got at the moment is OG Anunoby being out. Jalen Brunson might be coming back, but I think that Shamet can still get 30-ish or close to 30 minutes even if Brunson's back. Now, it's not super reliable, but he is top 100 over the last week. It's more 14 team than anything, but he's in the discussion. Let's talk about some other names. We've got 5 other names that I want to chat about here. Number 1, Daniss Jenkins. The tough part here is the Pistons do not play for 3 days. The tough part here is Jaden Ivey is in the G League getting ready to return. The tough part here is that Asar Thompson might play more minutes next game. The tough part is Tobias Harris might be back in the next game. Jenkins has been awesome. Now, I will say this. Jenkins is better than Karis LeVert. I will say this. There is an outside shot that Daniss Jenkins is better than Jaden Ivey. Outside shot. And I don't know, because we just haven't seen Ivey play in forever. It is a fait accompli that Daniss Jenkins is better than Marcus Sasser. I just don't know how Bickerstaff is going to handle this. Now, I'll tell you this. In 3 days' time, if Daniss Jenkins starts over Asar Thompson again, we are on. We are early enough in the season here, in the middle of week 5, where enough doubts on certain other scenarios, where if you wanted to hold or add Daniss Jenkins for 3 days with no games and cop a bit of a hit there, I think it's doable. Now, if you've lost every matchup and you're down the bottom, you probably can't do that. But I think we are still early enough to just go, maybe. Now, I had no I thought there was no way that once K came back, Jenkins would even be considered to be a starter. But Bickerstaff put Asar on the bench. Whether that's minutes restriction or not, I don't care what he said. I need to see it in action. We will find out. But we still have Harris and Ivy to return, and that feels like it's going to make it impossible. But this guy's just been so good. Bob Portis. There's no Giannis. Portis is bad. We have fond memories of Giannis being out in previous seasons and Bobby Portis going crazy. I want you to, like Men in Black, mind thing you and go, that guy doesn't exist anymore. This is just a bad Bobby Portis. But get to 26 minutes. Get me 14 and 7 with one defensive stat every new moon. And maybe it's something. I think, and this is disgusting, I think I'd prefer Kyle Kuzma. But Portis is at least an option with Giannis out. Let's talk about the horse, Keldon Johnson. Johnson, in the last game, with no Wemby, was excellent. Johnson, over the course of this season, has had moments where you've gone, okay, look, that's fine. He's averaging 24 fantasy points per game coming off the bench. He had 18 and 7 in 30 minutes last game without Wemby. He shot 53% from the field. He had a 27 usage, which is eye-opening. No Castle, no Wemby, his usage went way up. There is also an absolutely gigantic chance that he can be better, because he is shooting an unfathomable 5.6% from 3 over his last 8 games. And the only reason it is up to 5.6% is because he hit a 3 in the last game. He was, what was his, let me have a look at what the attempts were. Wow, he is 1 of his last 18 from 3. And last game he was 1 of 5. So he was 0 of 13 prior to that. He is, though, just a points and rebounds guy with very low upside because he never gets assists, not a steals guy, not a threes guy, not a blocks guy, and doesn't get to the line. But if you wanted a little bit of a volume boost player who did play those 30 minutes, more than Jeremy Sohan and more than Kelly Olynyk and more than Julian Champagny, there's, I guess, some level of appeal there. Some. Peyton Watson is also an ad. Sort of. but not really. Or he's a name to be worth considering because he is the guy replacing Christian Braun. It wasn't Tim Hardaway, it wasn't Bruce Brown. Watson is not a 2, obviously, but Christian Brown's not a traditional 2 either. He doesn't shoot threes, and neither does Watson, but Watson generates big defensive numbers. This is not for everybody, but Peyton Watson's at least worth considering to look for steals and some blocks. He might occasionally have a good offensive game, but that's not the reliability part. And he's a guy that in those 30 minutes can do close to enough. Close to it. I still don't think it's a must, but it's close. Now, for those of you double onyxers, with your diamond, platinum, titanium leagues, better than all us plebs, you're already ahead of this one. But we have to talk about the Colonel, Kobe Sanders. Sanders is starting for the Clippers. Now, I'm not willing to sit here and tell you that I believe and trust in Ty Lue, because I don't. Because Ty Lue told us 2 games ago that the young players were going to play a much larger role, and they played a smaller role. So, yeah, that was great. But there's no Brad Beal, season over. There's no Derek Jones, out past Christmas. No Jordan Miller, another hamstring injury. This guy's starting. And in his first start for the Colonel, he scored 17 points. So he could be, we could theoretically get a 2-month run here. Now, we also might not, because Chris Dunn's minutes might go back up, or Bogdan Bogdanovic's minutes might go back up, or they make another change, as they always seem to do. And of course, Kawhi Leonard still has to return. So does Leonard returning move Sanders back to the bench, or is it Dunn? Or is it Collins? I don't know. Sanders, though, is also a player that, he scored 17 points in that first start, and it wasn't on insanely high efficiency or insanely high usage. I think he shot 45% on 11 shots. It's not that efficient, all right? It's not superstar stuff. But there is some passing upside with Sanders, who played for Cal Poly for 4 years in college. He's a 5-year college player. He transferred to Nevada for his final season, and in that final season, he shot 34% on 3, not a huge volume 3-point shooter, but he averaged 4.5 assists. Think of the way that a couple of other Nevada guys, and that's the easy comparison, but the Martins, Cody Martin, Caleb Martin, they ran as these sort of forward-sized point guard, point forward, lead guard players who've got passing ability that aren't really point guards. And this team has James Harden, who's carrying hard, and Chris Paul, who doesn't play, and Bogdan Bogdanovic, who's in and out. Like, Sanders is only averaging 1 assist a game, but maybe it gets to 3. As a bigger-sized playmaker who gets by with some efficiency. And, he's a weird player. Like, he averaged 11 points a game in college. Like, these are not good numbers. And at Nevada, he was at 16 points per game with 4.5 assists and, 4 rebounds? Yeah. Like, they're not superstar-type numbers. But he just looks sort of in control. He looks solid. I don't think there's huge upside with him. But a starter getting 30 minutes at least until Kawhi is back, you should be considering him in the deeper formats. 200 deeps for sure, 175s maybe. And he might even be streamable in standard leagues. And his second game as a starter is going to be very interesting to watch. Go. And that, guy, is a waiver wire show. Are there any other names that you thought that I should have discussed or you want to discuss? You can drop those in the comments on YouTube. You can drop them in the comments on Spotify as well, because that's a thing apparently I went through yesterday and saw. I don't get notified any comments on Spotify, and it's hard to sort of search them up, but I did see some of them yesterday. So you can drop comments on there as well. We're heading towards 100K, which is great. Guys, we're done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.